All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Wakar and the Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh. In his only begotten Son, Bahashem, in the name of Mashiach Yahweh Shai. Those are the true names in ancient Paleo Hebrew of Lost Kadash the tongue. And I say Barak to the leaders and apostles, Wa'akia and Wa'akwa, and I say Shalom. And this is a sit down lesson of the prophecy updates as of April the 29th, 2026, on this Wednesday night. And I'm bringing up some news articles that lead to biblical prophecies. Yeah, bring out the news articles that leads up to biblical prophecies. It says Trump braces for a long Hormuz block. The IDF strike Hezbollah's launcher inside a civilian building. Check out these news updates from the Jerusalem Post. Yep, it says Trump says Hexcroft will become a national hero if pardoned. Netanyahu. Ain't nobody trying to pardon that guy because you got citizens in uproar against him, so they're gonna be protesting against him until he not be pardoned. It says Iran's Navy blockage says Iran's Navy blockage stays until Tehran agrees to a nuclear deal. The U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran will remain under a naval blockage until a nuclear deal is reached. The CENTCOM prepares for a potential military strike if negotiations fail. Most likely, those negotiations might fail if the Trump administration keep on rejecting these latest proposals that Iran have for the United States, which they originally rejected. So we're gonna see because they're gonna have rather than having talks over there in Pakistan, they're gonna have over the phone talks. So in the meantime, we're gonna see how that plays out. But in the meantime, we definitely gonna see the United States gonna continue to block the spread of loose while until the United States have until the United States says that Iran shows a good solid deal. But till then, they're gonna continue to block the spread of loose. And if a deal doesn't go through, let's believe the United States is going to once again use military action, nuclear strike against Iran, and Iran potentially might do the same thing as well too. So the battle for square for Moose, which is going to continue to heat up once again, despite the fact they might have recent talks over the phone. But if a deal doesn't go through, let's believe they're going to continue to block the square for Moose, which we're saying that, which we've been saying that for the past couple of weeks, almost a month now. It says sirens in southern Israel was a false alarm. The IDF conforms. Let's check out the Jerusalem Post. Media time about Israel. It says CENTCOM Chief Trump new plans for military action against Iran. Check out this news report. Yep, it says this is our last updated from a live blog. Slocky. Yep, so this is a live blog. Keep down a little bit. Yep, it says this is a CENTCOM chief brief Trump on new plans for new military action against Iran, reports. It says the U.S. President Donald Trump is slated to receive a brief on new plans for potential military action in Iran on Thursday from the leaders of the U.S. Central Command, Adam Bridget Cooper, as Axios reports. It said 3 sources with the knowledge of the matter tells the outlet that the CENTCOM has drawn up plans for a short and powerful series of strikes on Iran targets, with the aim of pressuring Iran to give ground in negotiations. One of the sources say other options can be ready to include a takeover of the part of Strait of Hormuz. Iran not gonna let that happen. They trying to take over now they blocking the Square for moves. Now they trying to potentially might take parts of the Square for moves. So ever since because they're gonna have these ongoing back and forth talks between Iran and the United States over the phone rather than meeting over there in Pakistan, which I would mention before. So now they're gonna meet on Thursday about a potential short and powerful military strikes against Iran targets. So we're gonna see how that plays out. But in the meantime, they're gonna continue to block the Square for moves, and the tensions are only gonna ramp up between Iran and the United States unless they don't have, unless they won't come with what they deal. So as it says again from CENTCOM Chief of Brief, Trump on new plans for military action against Iran. So bring up that Matthew's 24th chapter. So once again, we're going to be seeing more nuclear wars and nuclear wars and oil wars between these nations. Matthews 24 and verse 6, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Right, that's we're hearing wars and rumors of wars. Russia, the Ukraine situation. What was that? Iran versus United States squared off moves on a daily basis. And then these different nuclear escalation tensions are heating up on a daily basis. So that's what you call a daily modern day of wars and rumors of wars. It says Matthew 24 and verse 7. It says, for nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, right? As we're seeing rising tensions on and off back and forth of the critical moves between the United States and Iran. Now they are going to have a meeting discussion between the United States armies and President Trump about a potential use another military action of missile strikes against Iran potentially if it's not no deal is progress. If Iran, continue to have these proposals that the United States doesn't like, they can continue to reject them, and then they're going to continue to block the square for moves, and then they're going to potentially use a military action once again, which they did previously against Iran. So we're going to see how this stuff plays out, especially this week coming up. But in the meantime, as we're seeing right now, the battle of Strait of Hormuz is going to continue to increase between Iran and the United States over there in that region. Matthews 24 verse 7, once again, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, right? So we're seeing nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places, right? Because you had a 4.4 earthquake outside of Las Vegas. And that was the same area, I believe, like 2.5 weeks ago, got hit with that 5.7 earthquake in Silver Springs, Nevada. So this is, we're going to be seeing earthquakes in diverse places, the pestilence, the famines, the nation against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. This is that something will continue to increase. And this is the Gospel of Matthew 24 verse 8. All these are the beginning of sorrows, right? So all these is the beginning of sorrows that we're going to continue to increase. Check out some more news articles from the live blog. It says the U.S. is working on a new coalition to ensure ships can pass through the Strait of Hormuz. It says the Royal Commission calls on Australia to bolster its security at a small hats event in the wake of the bombing massive which that happened. What was that? Not too long ago over there in Australia. They on high alert. They're gonna have high security, and then you have an individual over there in the UK stabbed up to Amalekites. Hey, so these are small hatters. They definitely on high alert. That's why we're saying that Job 18 verse 11 is full effect. And I just spoke about that when I was out there teaching over there. When I was outside teaching not so long ago. And this is the book of Luke 21. Yeah, this book of Luke 21 and verse 25. This is the Gospel of Luke 21 verse 25. It says, there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth discretion of the nations will perplex secrets wrong. Right, so we're seeing the uptick of those people world, with these protests and these uprises. And nations are in perplexity, which we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. So I'm gonna check out the news now. And this is it says China. This is from the Miami Herald. It says China condemns China's push for revival security documents. Right, because we've been seeing, we've been seeing once again rising tensions been heating up between China and Japan. It says Putin and Trump discuss a ceasefire, and it says so potential of a ceasefire. It says from the Unwire, the UA Wire. It says Ukraine drones strike Russian helicopters at a field site deep inside Russian territory. Right, while they're trying to have some type of temporary ceasefire on both sides of Russia and Ukraine. But in the meantime, you're still going to see Russia-Ukraine situations on going to intensify, and that's what we're seeing. It says attacks on none in Jerusalem spark outcries as tensions with Christians mount in Jerusalem. Right, that's what upwards of people were. It says two small hats, two Amalekites stabbed at a London in Al Yemen planes attack, which is those potential Ishmaelites. Because they said this guy was a Somalian who did that, so he was it's like he was a Cushite. So Job 18 verse 11 is in full effect. It says Russia begins a production of a S-71K air-launched cruise missiles used for components. It says this is from National Interest. It says British fighter jets scramble after Russian drones enter a Romania airspace. Right, because you've been having these what you call these close encounters as of recently between NATO and Russia. So check out this news report. This is from the National Interest.org, published by Peter Sayu, if I pronounce his name right, April 29th, 2026. It reads, it says British fighter jet scrambles after Russian drones enter Russian Romania airspace. It says a 2 Eurofighter Typhoon aircraft intercepted a swarm of F-15. 15 Russian kamikaze drones passed through Romania on a way to target in Ukraine. It says a Russian kamikaze drone crashed into the NATO territory over the weekend, destroying property and forcing 2 British Eurofighter Typhoon fighter jets to scramble. The Russian drone entered the NATO airspace. It says on Saturday morning, the NATO air defense spotted a swarm of 15 Russian one-way attack annual aerial systems approaching a Romania airspace. NATO scrambled and 2 Royal Force Eurofighters. Typhoon fighters took intercept the Russian kamikaze drones. At least one of the drones crashed near the town of Romania, crossing a house, an extension of the electrician applied. So we definitely, as I mentioned again, those always close encounters between Russia and NATO. So that goes back to that Ezekiel 38 chapter. So despite the fact these talks between the United States and Russia but you're still going to see tensions going to abound between NATO and Russia. It says Ukraine boosts border defense amid concerns over Russian activities. Yeah, once again, Russia, Ukraine. Yeah, we get to that Ezekiel, the 38th chapter. This is the prophet Ezekiel, because Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, is still going to come into full effect, despite these talks that they recently had. So Ezekiel 38th chapter is still going to go into full effect. It says Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 4. It says, "No, but turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and bring forth in all thy army, horse and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company, buckled shields, all of them hand swords." Right, so Russia, they still going in that warlike mindset. As the Russia-Ukraine situation is going to continue to expand. And then NATO versus Russia heating up on a day-to-day basis, because those tensions over there in the ballistic sea, I believe, in the Black Sea, and over there in the northern flank and the eastern flank of military building up from both sides from Russia and NATO still going to continue to increase. So we're definitely seeing that Ezekiel 38th chapter, verse 4 is going to continue to heat up. And this is the prophet Joel, chapter 3 and verse 9. As the United States, as it says again, CENTCOM chief brief Trump on a new plans for U.S. military action against Iran. Right, if no progress is made with these over the phone talks between Iran and the United States, best believe the United States is going to continue to continue to block the Strait of Hormuz unless no deal, unless it's not no deal. Joel 3 verse 9, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty man. It says, let all the men of war draw near them to come up, right? So we're still gonna have I believe it was a news article saying that they were saying, I think it was between Israel and Lebanon, they were saying that these peace talks they were supposed to have, I think they're gonna have another third round of talks in the near future. They were in Israel Defense Force was saying that southern Lebanon, it's not fully part of the other, it's not part of a ceasefire. So that's why you've been having these recent airstrikes on both sides between the borders of Lebanon and between the borders of Israel and Lebanon in self-defense right now as we speak. So it haven't been no peace deals and no discussions about of trying to have some type of ceasefire over there in southern Lebanon. But certain different parts, yeah. Salakia. Yep, Joel chapter 3, verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty man, let all the men of war draw near. Right, so while the United States potentially gonna have some type of discussions about potentially of another strike against Iran if they don't have no deal in place, as they make having discussions over the phone with that as of recently. And then you're still gonna have ongoing tensions heating up over there in Lebanon because that wasn't part of the peace deal, even though they have extended it for the next 3 weeks. So best believe you're still gonna have some tensions heating up. Yeah, that's the news article I was looking for. It says the IDF, which the Israel Defense Force chief, says there is no ceasefire in southern Lebanon, amending the continual fighting with Hezbollah. It says Trump. It says Slovakia. It says Trump repeatedly pushed back on Israeli efforts to limit talks with Beirut, returning to a large-scale war. 1 million Lebanese will face food insecurity in the coming months, Monitor warns. This is from April 29th, 11:13 p.m. It says the IDF Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Eli Zimmer, if I pronounce his name right, saying during their visit to a troops post in southern Lebanon on Wednesday, there is no ceasefire, as Israel and Hezbollah continue to exchange fire despite a truce. There has been a place for almost 2 weeks. Zimmer comment came amending a report pushed for Jerusalem to get the United States to limit its historical direct talks with the Lebanese government to 2-week framework and to sign off on a large-scale IDF campaign against Hezbollah, the Iran-backed Lebanese group. If the talks, it says if the talks fail, it says the United States meditated ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, which started on April 17th and extended on April the 24th for an additional 3 weeks. It says U.S. President Trump has announced at the time. It says at the time his announcement came as Israel and Lebanese diplomats met for the U.S. broker talks, but border fighting has continued. Speaking in the southern Lebanese town at Tel Bel, one of the border villages where Israeli troops are deployed, Zamir said that the IDF, was the Israel Defense Force, will not tolerate Hezbollah attacks, while adding that Israel will not leave the security buffer zones it holds. It says in southern Lebanon, the threat of Israel northern communities is removed. It says in Lebanon, the mission assigned us by the political echoing to positioning ourselves along the line to prevent direct fire on the communities. We have achieved this. This is the line we are in. We may be required to remain onto it, Zamira said. We will not retaliate on fire in our community, and we will not leave until long-term security for the northern communities is ensured, he said to the remarks by the IDF. The IDF is continuing to fight. The chief of staff added that, saying that the military is working to deepening the operational achievements and to protect our forces. On the combat front, there is no ceasefire. You continue to fight to remove and indirect threats. It says from the northern communities to broader groups, infrastructure to unalive groups. He continued. This is Prophet Joel, chapter 3, verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, right? The Gentiles, the armies of the other nations, as they being gathered up over there in Western Asia. It says, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, right? Let all the men of war draw near over there in Western Asia. Joel chapter 3, verse 10. Beat your plowshares and swords, plenty of us, and the spears, and the sound strong, right? Because you had the one of the leaders of Hezbollah recently said they're not going to disarm themselves. Then they're going to continue to fight to the end against the Israel Defense Force, like the northern part. I would say like the southern part of Lebanon. So you're going to have a infight. You're going to have a cross-border conflict still going to heat up and deeper in southern Lebanon, the suburban part of Lebanon. And then you're going to have heavy strikes near Tel Aviv, like the northern part of Israel, the southern part of Israel, the central part of Israel, and then over there in the Golden Heights. So it's going to be an increasing cross-border conflict from a self-defense perspective on both sides. Because even having the Israel Defense Force been calling out Hezbollah for breaking the ceasefire. while they had extended it for 3 weeks. So ever since then, there has been no ceasefire over there in the southern part of Lebanon. So between the borders of the Golan Heights and Israel and Lebanon, tensions are only going to expand on both sides. So you're still going to have the pro-Iranian groups using heavy airstrikes against the Israel Defense Force. And you still got that military operation of Israel Defense Force in southern Lebanon. So you're still going to have the pro-Iranian groups are still going to be rising up against them. And you're still going to have the resistance of the Palestinians. It says, beat your plowshares and the swords and the pruning hooks into spears and let the weak sound strong. Right, so let the weak sound strong. So with that, I'm going ahead and close it out. This was just a quick sit-down lesson of the prophecy updates. So you're still going to see wars and rumors of wars, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And you're still going to see these prophecies. They still going to come to pass, be fulfilled. So with that, as I mentioned again, this was just a quick prophecy update as of April the 29th, 2026 on this Wednesday night. So with that, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wakar Kadash, and the Heavenly Father. True name is Yahweh and His only begotten Son, Bahashem, and the name of Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, Balash Kadash, the Holy Tongue. And I say Barakatham to the elders and apostles, Wa'akim, Wa'akwaf. Till next time, I would say Kwame Asharala and the Baba Ball. Shalom.